We begin this hour, though, with breaking news out of California. Governor Gavin Newsom just moments ago announced his plan to redraw congressional district lines in the state. He says the move is to counter Republican attempts to redraw maps in their favor in other states. Meanwhile, outside, federal agents turned up near Newsom's event. The governor posted this video on social media. He also talked about it in his speech there, writing of the move as an intimidation tactic at the hands of the Trump administration. Take a listen.
He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE? Same time, having a conversation like this. Someone who's weak. Someone who's broken. Someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history. An economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse.
Okay, but back to the issue of redistricting in California. Newsom has proposed a plan to bypass the independent commission that's currently in charge of drawing district lines in that state. But California voters will have to give the final approval for that.
We're doing this in reaction to a president of the United States that called a sitting governor of the state of Texas and said, find me 5 seats. We're doing it in reaction to that act. We're doing it mindful of our higher angels and better angels. We're doing it mindful that we want to model better behavior, as we've been doing for 15 years in the state of California with our independent redistricting commission. But we cannot unilaterally disarm. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear. We can't stand back and watch this democracy disappear district by district all across this country.
Well, next year's midterm elections will be critical for Republicans to hold on to their control of the House. Now, remember, they can only afford to lose 3 seats. 2 seats are still vacant. Newsom is calling on other blue states to join the redistricting fight. All right, let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. Jessica, I don't want to ignore the other storyline that's going on here. We have federal agents showing up outside Governor Newsom's event there. He says it's the president's attempt to intimidate him. But the event was meant to talk about redistricting in California. So I want to talk to you about that. What's the process of bypassing this independent commission in the state to draw new district lines? What goes into this?
It's a great question. Great to be with you today. So what we have done 15 years ago, as Governor Newsom mentioned, is take the power to draw district lines that was previously with state lawmakers, and we created this independent redistricting commission, and they draw the state lines and the federal lines in California. And this is part of our Constitution. It's part of the state constitution. So in California, how can we change the state constitution? We need to go back to the voters. And so that's the process that Governor Newsom is talking about. And that's why he's making this case not to lawmakers, but to the voters. Because first he's going to go to the legislature and say, pass this, agree to put it on the ballot. But then there's going to be a long slog of saying to the voters, pass this, give the power to draw these district lines back to elected officials, at least in the short term, because we're not where we were 15 years ago. And he's making the argument, essentially, we need to politically gerrymander in California.
Yeah, it's important to note, I want to get to this a little bit later, that California is different than other states, and there's a number of reasons for that you just went into. But I want to talk about this. The number of House seats has been set since 1913 at 435. I'm curious, is there an argument to be made that because of the changing population, both in numbers and demographics, frankly, that the House perhaps add more seats?
Sure. That's something that we talk about. I will say it's also discussed on the state level and in the city level. We're in conversation in California. There are 120 state lawmakers. I believe that number was set when there were maybe a tenth of the number of people who currently live in California who live there now. So I would say it's a great question. And the question, I think, is happening up and down the levels. It's happening on the city level, the state level, and then, of course, on the House level, the federal level, because we all just saw that graphic that shows the balance of power in the House really is up for grabs. And that's why we're having this conversation about political gerrymandering. You don't have this conversation if there's a 20-point swing and neither party thinks that redrawing district lines will make much of a difference.
Now, it's important to note, obviously, California looking closely at Texas, as are other states. But California is a little bit different because Democrats in California face more legal and logistical hurdles than, say, lawmakers in Texas and other states. Why is that? And what challenges do other states like, say, Florida and New York face?
So here, obviously, we have more challenges because, as we've been talking about, in California, now for more than a decade, we first passed an initiative in 2008, then again in 2010. We said that state lawmakers no longer have the power to draw district lines. Many other states don't have this independent redistricting commission. And we did that because the idea is that the voters should pick their elected officials, not the elected officials drawing the lines to pick the voters. I think you mentioned other states, what's happening in Florida. So what's happening is that there's this broad discussion, I think, on both sides of the aisle and in states where there are independent redistricting commissions like New York, like Illinois, where the question is, are they going to temporarily suspend these independent commissions in order to try and fight GOP states leading the charge to politically gerrymander? And that's why we're having this conversation about suspending this commission that we've lived with for quite a long time now. And that's why it's harder in California and other states with the commission to say, okay, well, we're just going to fight back Texas.
And I'm curious if there's a precedent being set, though, suspending these independent commissions moving forward, because you don't necessarily want to go through that process, right? Is that sending kind of an unsettling precedent for other issues?
So I'll let other people talk about whether or not it's unsettling. I will say what it is Governor Newsom says we just aren't where we were 15 years ago. This is an entirely different country. And that's why I think he spent so much time situating California as kind of the epicenter of the resistance to the Trump administration, in his view, and why he was making the case that in general, I think Governor Newsom and many other Democrats are in favor of this good government reform, this independent commission. But what he's saying is we're not in general. We're in a situation where I think he would argue you can't bring a knife to a gunfight. We need to have these tools. Does it set a precedent? I tend to think that once you do open up that box and you say state lawmakers draw the district lines, then it could be hard to unwind. But again, that's playing out what could happen, not just 2 years, but 4, 10, 20 years in the future.
Right. All right, Jessica Levinson, thank you so much for that insight. Always great to see you. All right, meanwhile, the House GOP's campaign arm releases statements saying in part to those federal agents outside that Newsom's latest stunt has nothing to do with Californians and everything to do with consolidating radical Democrat power, silencing California voters, and propping up his, what they're saying, pathetic 2028 presidential pipe dream.